I'm delighted to welcome some really, really amazing panellists to the stage. I think you should just all come up at once. Is that okay? Yeah? So Jo Tongue, CEO and founder of Tongue Tied Media, please come up. Sian Massey-Ellis MBE, Reshmin Chowdhury and Monique Chowdhury, please come to the stage. Thank you for such a lovely introduction, Jackie, and thank you for having me. This is a little bit incredible. I am a bit blown away. When Jack said fearless, I just thought, I am absolutely bricking it. I mean, look at you all. Never mind the panel, who are amazing, but look at the amazing women in this room. It's just phenomenal. I hope you all feel really proud of yourselves. Jo, let's start with you. Let me just read a little bit of who you are and what you do, because it's all bonkers. All these bios are bonkers. CEO and founder of Tongue Tied Media, an incredibly committed and long-standing board member of Women in Football. Nearly 20 years in the industry, which I don't know about you, but makes me feel old.
Very old.
Yeah, I'm thinking we should just call it senior and experienced rather than old. Started out at the BBC as a sports reporter, worked on 606, the iconic flagship show, and a registered FA agent. She is passionate about securing fair contracts for all clients, be they male or female, and we will talk a bit more about that. And as if all of that isn't enough, Jo is also a trustee of both the Jason Roberts Foundation and the Michael Carrick Foundation. Please give a round of applause to Jo. So, do you actually like football then? Sorry, couldn't help it. It's a common question, isn't it? Before we proceed, I should just explain that Vicky Kloss, unfortunately, hasn't been able to join us. She has come down with COVID. Oh, the blight that continues to affect us all. She sent a really, really lovely note just to say that she's very sorry that she can't be here. She said, I'm so sorry to be writing this. I've just tested positive for COVID. This was about 6 o'clock this morning. I'm so frustrated and so sorry to let you down, but obviously I can't get on the train and come. I know the fabulous panel you have assembled will rock this, and you will. But once again, I'm so sorry to let you down. And she said she really wants to be at the next SWIFT conference. So Barclays, get ready. There's another one in the works. Vicky's called it already. She has dropped us a little word of advice, and we'll include that at the end of the session too. Sian Massey-Ellis, MBE, I mean, it's absolutely brilliant to have you on this panel. A real honour. A Premier League assistant referee, total trailblazer, member of the select Group 1 list, the highest domestic officiating level in England. Sian has been incorporating fixtures as an assistant video assistant referee following the introduction of VAR. On the FIFA match officials list since 2009, a wealth of experience on the domestic and international stage. She's officiated the Women's FA Cup final, playoff finals, Women's World Cups and Euros, Women's UEFA Champions League, Men's UEFA Europa League, and she's an MBE. Thank you very much for joining us, Sian. Reshmin. If you ever switch on the TV, you'll just see Resh, basically. She's across every bit of football there is. She's absolutely amazing. Groundbreaking TV and radio sports broadcaster, working across sports, and not just football, interviewing the biggest names in world football. She really genuinely is and has been doing since 2008. You'll have no doubt seen her on everything from BT Sport, BBC, TalkSport and Eurosport in a career spanning over 15 years. She covers domestic and European football, recently anchored the Olympics, as well as Euro 2020 with ITV. She spent 2 years at Real Madrid and has interviewed the biggest names of the game in multiple languages. I mean, just ridiculous. Amazing. And finally, Monique Choudhuri, board member of Women in Football, managing director of Versify Consultant and a non-exec director at Brentford Football Club, and we'll definitely ask you a bit more about that shortly. 25 years experience in strategy, leadership consultancy, inclusive leadership and EDI. She drives strategic cultural change, which we all know is so important, particularly at the moment, and champions diversity to unlock opportunities for people, as well as improving business value. Please give a round of applause to Monique. Thank you very much. So Jo, let's start with you. I mean, women in football, you were there pretty much from the start. You remember what a humble organisation we were, and to think that it's now grown to, what are we, sort of 5,000? 6,000 members, for goodness sake. You were there at the time where we didn't have an events team. We didn't have Laura Wolf on the mic. I loved that this morning. Laura, when I checked in and she was like, hello, Georgina, Anna Kessel is coming up the escalators. It sounded so professional. It was amazing. Tell us what it was like back in the day when we just didn't have anything.
Well, I think Jackie alluded to it in her opening speech. There was literally this small group of women, and I was really young in, my career. I think I was a runner at 5 Live. I mean, I was nothing. I was making the teas and the coffees. And Shelley Alexander said to me, we've got this group of women, and we're thinking of like starting a network, because in those days, I was just starting out as a sports reporter, and I'd go to a press conference. And I hated it. I'm not going to lie, I hated it. It was the one I loved writing about football, and I just wanted to talk about football, but I hated the turning up and the having to worry about what to wear, and sort of almost desexualising myself, wearing a polo neck. Do I wear makeup? Do I not wear makeup? Who's going to speak to me? How many times did I get asked, where's the team sheet, love? Where's the coffee, love? And I was like, I'm just here to write a match report. And I knew no one. And so to meet, this group of women, or to be asked to join this group of women who, to me, were, groundbreaking in their own way, but just to be able to go, are you all right? Oh, hello, I know someone. We were a minority at that point. There were a few women who worked at the clubs, and I think even for them, welcoming us to games, it was just nice to kind of go, are you all right? Are you all right? And then, our first event was at West Ham, and I think there was probably 30 of us. And trust me, it was nothing like this. There were no Britney Spears mics there, trust me. It was, and it was just amazing to see 30 other women who kind of were struggling with the same things and just being really open about it. And we were really almost an underground thing for years. And it's not that we were embarrassed of it, but it was almost like, we've got to look after each other, and the men are on the golf course or in the pub and they're doing their thing, so we'll just do our little thing and just kind of look out for each other, but let's not make a big thing about it, and let's definitely not talk about it.
Sian, I'm going to come to you next, because I feel like you're very integral to the story of women in football too. We know how brilliantly you've done now, but it obviously wasn't easy along the way, and there was a very high-profile incident that happened quite early on in your career with the lovely Keys and Gray, some of you might remember. And the reason why that was so important for WIF was that at that time, women didn't really stand up and call out sexism. But when we saw what was happening to you, I think it forced a lot of women to think, actually, we have to be brave, we have to be courageous, we have to say something, this just isn't on. You told me that it was actually only your second game, that incident. How did that affect you so early on in your career?
It's really strange hearing other side of things, because I look back and think it was just me on a game. I never see the impact that has on others, so it's really nice to actually see that me being there had an impact on other women and how they fought for women in football. So that's really important to me. Yeah, like you say, it was only my second ever Premier League game. So it was my first TV game on a Premier League as well. To be my second game when the appointment came through, I was like, what are they doing? It's only my second game. And we talked briefly as well about having a confidence in ourselves. So in terms of it had a positive impact because I got the decision right. Had I got that decision wrong, it might have been a completely different story. And everybody always talks about that decision in terms of they highlighted actually that I'd made a correct decision in the end on that decision. But if you look 3 minutes later on that video, you'll see I got one wrong. And we never talk about, the decisions that we get right or wrong. We talk about the sexist industry. I suppose we need... it was difficult for me because I was still really young in my career to actually... kind of have a voice in that moment. So it was really important that others had a voice for me at that point. I just kind of was like, I just want to get another game. So I just kind of kept going with it. So it didn't really, it impacted really on my family because there was press and newspapers all out my front door, waking me up at 7 o'clock in the morning, flashing their lights on my wall. But in terms of, they questioned my family, they were knocking on the door, kind of questioning are you not proud of your daughter for being on the Premier League? Do you not want to talk to us about it? And, it was kind of like they you know, my dad stood there and was like, of course I'm proud of her. But it's really difficult to kind of, you just didn't want it to be a story, really. I just wanted my Premier League kind of first season to go well rather than it to be talked about, really. So I suppose it's more important that this group here is evolved to create that support network.
And of course, as a referee or an official, you're not allowed to talk to the media. So you were in a bind anyway. But you let your job do the talking, and you are where you are today, which is just phenomenal despite that. But yeah, I really remember that, Jackie being like, she got the decision right, for goodness sake. The text messages flying in. I think a lot of women in the room will relate to that idea of, you know, being under pressure, being worried about making a mistake, perhaps being the only woman in the setting. And if you get something wrong, then everybody going, oh, we should never let a woman in charge. I mean, there you go. You are really at the coalface, you know, on the pitch, cameras right on you. You've got to make an instant decision. Probably most of us get a bit more time to think about it. What kind of advice can you share with women in the room today about how to deal with that situation of making a mistake?
I think because everybody makes mistakes, and actually it's how we learn and grow from them mistakes that makes us a better person. So, I mean, you know, I just alluded to then that there was definitely one mistake 3 minutes after in that game that I made. So we do make mistakes, and for me it's about having the confidence to kind of own it. Actually, probably referees can't talk in the media and things after the games, but actually a lot of them would say, I made a mistake, and just move on. And it's about, right, okay, why did I make a mistake? What can I do differently next time? So I think my biggest advice is that we all make mistakes, own it, and learn from it.
Love that. Don't be afraid of mistakes. So good. If Massey-Ellis, Dr. Massey-Ellis says it, then it's true. By the way, can I just ask about the doctor part?
Do you know, it's about, you know, we never stand up for ourselves. We never, sorry, passionate about this. I find that I've got a group of young referees coming forwards, and you talk to them and they're so negative about themselves. And actually, I'm probably one of the first to be quite negative about myself, and I'm learning to be more positive about myself. And I got a doctorate kind of on the back of my MBE from my university, and I never use it on anything. And my husband's like, why don't you use it? You earned that. And actually, it's about going, yeah, I did earn that, you know, and I'm proud of it, and why don't we use these things that we're proud of? So, and it's about showing others that they can achieve it too. And I think that's why I use it now.
Love that. Thank you, Doctor. I'm going to move on to Reshmin. Reshmin, I mean, we heard from Kelly about, you know, her reaction to, would you ever be a coach? She was like, God, no, I've got 2 children. How would I manage? The media, football media industry is ridiculous. It is relentless. Is there a day when football's not on TV? Hardly. And you're across all of it, plus you've got 2 children. Can you just...
Let me breathe for a second.
Explain, yeah, sorry, take a breath. How do you do that?
Well, I mean, I was sat with Fern Whelan just there, and she's like, are you going up now? And I was like, yep, I just need to figure out my travel and what I'm doing at the weekend. I mean, that is how it works all the time. And I don't know how I do it, but I give myself a pat on the back every single day, because I know I'm a freaking superwoman, because I work so hard in this industry, and it's not been an easy route for me. And having 2 children, actually, they give me a lot of perspective, because, you know, work is not everything. So in 10 years' time, I'm not going to remember the game I'm doing this weekend or the one I did last weekend. I'm going to remember my happy memories with my special people, not necessarily my kids, but my friends, anyone who's in my circle. So they give you perspective, but the practicalities of working in this industry, as we all know, and this industry is very, very selfish. Everyone in our circle has to revolve around us and our schedule. Mm. And as Kelly was saying, the weekends, you want to be with your kids, but, I might be working Saturday and Sunday. So it's a massive juggle, and you've got to be really forgiving on yourself as well. I think you can carry a lot of guilt, and I certainly have. I mean, when I was doing European football I'm in my 7th year of doing that with BT. The first 3-5 years were so difficult, and it's about sort of speaking up about how difficult it was. And in the first few years, I mean, you have bosses that really don't care, certain bosses that really don't care, and I certainly had ones that didn't. So I'd be sent from, on a European week, on a Monday to a Friday. My kids were probably about 3 and 4 at that time. and I'd go on a Monday to a Friday, maybe 2 locations, maybe even 3 different locations, covering 3 different games.
Wow.
And it's not right. It's just not right that your bosses don't consider that, because our jobs are extraordinary. It's not your regular, not that anyone does a 9 to 5 these days, but if you're in one location, you can at least plan a life. This is a logistical operation, a massive logistical operation. And then you think of all the other struggles on top being a woman in football. So that is a massive job in itself. And, I don't want to be like Debbie Downer. I'm just being honest. It is really difficult. It's been so difficult. And I've had to really forgive myself for feeling the guilt that I have over the last few years of doing it. And that's why now I don't take it anymore. If I can't do it, I'll say, I'm sorry, I'm going to be with my children, or I have to do this for my kids. Or if I I don't know, you learn that through, I just genuinely think that it wasn't right that I did all of that. And it was because the environment was not conducive to me actually being able to speak up and say, I don't think I can do it, because I kind of, basically, put it this way, they definitely didn't pay me enough, definitely didn't pay me what they paid the man. And if I had to pay for the level of childcare 24/7 around the clock that I needed to look after my children at that time, it would not be worth me even having a career. As I know a lot of people will say that, but this was 24/7, Monday to Friday. If I didn't have grandparents around, I wouldn't have been able to do the job. And it was just a logistical night, and I'm quite, on top of everything. I don't sort of shut the door and I don't know what goes on. I know everything that goes on before I leave, because that's just how I am. I have to sort everything. Otherwise, if I leave it to them, it'll just be a mess when I come back, and that's even a bigger headache. So, all of that kind of, just because of my personality as well, maybe I took more on. But yeah, I'm being honest. But that doesn't mean don't have children. It just means that the environment, you've got to be able to say when you can't do certain things, and you've got to make your employers aware that I'm sorry, it's not the same as a man. Men in my industry would say to me, I just shut the door and leave. I'm like, really? That's nice. You should see what I do before I shut the door and leave, And it is just not the same for a father as it is for a mother. Maybe I'm sexist saying that, but in my experience, it's not been. So I think we all know, whoever's a mother or, whatever, you do know that you have another level that you've got to reach, and that's before you've even done your job.
Exactly. I mean, I'm just, in my mind's eye, I'm picturing your fridge, Resh.
Yeah.
When you've got a European week on and it's just Tupperware Central.
Yeah.
Nutritious, healthy meals for the family.
Yeah, exactly. That is.
It is, you are your own CEO. But, I mean, as a mum, every morning my now 6-year-old, who's my youngest, she says to me, Mummy, are you going to pick me up from school today? And I say, no, I'm not. We have the same conversation, and I feel terrible about it. Equally, I get into work, and my male colleagues have been there since 7 in the morning, and they will be there till 7 at night, easily, if not longer, and I feel guilty that I'm not there for 12 hours. I've heard, senior women in the industry say certain roles just do not work for mothers, and it's impossible, like coaches, for example. Surely now in 2022, we've got to a point where the industry has got to change to accommodate. It's not just about being a mum. You might be a primary carer. You might be. There's so many responsibilities that women have outside of their lives. What do you think needs to change?
I think the attitudes need to change. I think a lot of the bosses need to change. I think. Yeah, sorry, they do. People in charge who just, you've just got to be, you've got to be human. I think a lot of people just don't have that element. There are some people who are in charge who just don't understand that element. I think we've all got to be forgiving of each other and understand that people, like you say, people do have multiple responsibilities. It's not just a mother. It could be your pet. It could be a family member. It could be anything. But because of the nature of our industry, because, as I say, it's a selfish industry, because it is so particular, it's so random sometimes. These games can pop up at any given moment. There's things that throw you in our industry. And I think there just has to be a bigger understanding and awareness that you can't just at the drop of a hat do X, Y, Z without having to consider. I had something recently where I had to I was going to Chelsea to do some interviews, and I thought, right, well, if I leave at that point, then I can go and pick up my kids from school, then I've got to go somewhere else with my children. They were like, oh, can you also go and do da-da-da? I'm like, you didn't tell me this 2 days ago. And I said, actually, I can't. And years ago, I would have said, okay, let me try and make it work. So can you pick up the kids from school? And I was like, actually, no, because I have to be firm and have my boundaries as well. So anyway, the point is that it's people, it's good people in charge who have to just understand. No one is not trying to give their best in their job. If you've employed the right people, then you would assume that they all are dedicated to their job. And we all try our best. We all do our best to accommodate everything that's put on our plates, and we love what we do. That's the best bit about working in football, because we're all here because we've got that passion, and we wouldn't be here if we didn't. So I think it's just that great, it's dialogue. It's actually just communication at the end of the day, more than anything.
Monique, I'm going to come to you now, because this is obviously an area of your expertise, and you've joined football from other industries, but you're here now trying to make change. Tell us a bit about that journey and how you see football changing as an industry.
Gosh, that's such a good question. I really don't know where to start. I mean, first of all, I love football, and I've been a football supporter for 47 years, so you can do the maths, really. Also, just to say to Reshmin, I've got a 25 and a 22-year-old, and I experienced all of the things that you're talking about, and funnily enough, still do. So they don't even live with me, and I'm still stocking their fridges with Tupperware boxes. So well, I think once a mother, always a mother. I think to some degree, a career is forged on not just the skills you have, but the networks you have, the people you identify with, the people you align with. I'm definitely where I am in some parts of my career because of allies I've had who have been mostly male. And what they've done is they've beaten down the path for me and they've given me the opportunity. Some of them, though, haven't sponsored me when I've got there. So the road is lonely when you get to the top. But some have done that. Some have, beaten down all the bushes and the bracken, and then you get there and they go, is everything okay? Is there anything more I can do? So I do think there are two different types of people that do that. And that, by the way, there's a third that doesn't even think about that, doesn't support you at all. So there's quite a lot of similarity between the corporate world and the sport world. What I think is different about the corporate world is the corporate world has put a lot of policies, procedures and codes in place to support women who are caregivers, who maybe are single parents, who maybe choose to have children but they're not in partnerships. I think the corporate is probably 2 years ahead in that. And I think if you do work for a corporate as an organisation, you will probably feel better supported as a woman because of those policies and procedures that exist. And I think sport is having to some degree, play catch up with that. Because if you work for a football club, it's a 6-day-a-week job, and sometimes a 7-day-a-week job. So it's not just what you do behind the scenes, particularly off-field, from Monday to Friday. You have to still go on a Saturday and woo people and speak to people. And, Libby, who's one of my colleagues here from Brentford, she'll know that it's a 6-day-a-week job, and you're always there in the public eye. So I do feel that football has got a lot to answer for to some degree, because I think what it does is it's all-consuming, and it doesn't necessarily understand that you have another life. And I think you have to have really good resilience, excellent mental health, brilliant support, great husbands, partners, significant others who say, this is the choice that you've made, now I'm going to put the hands behind you and I'm going to support you to do that. I'm very lucky. I have a husband who watches football around the clock, and for his sins is a Watford football supporter, so not feeling great at the moment, not particularly with me in the house. And he has always been brilliant. He's never, ever, ever stood in my way. But here's the interesting thing. When he wants to go and watch a football match, on a Saturday, and it clashes with me having to go to Brentford and do my duties as a director, I will stand down my duty as a director to support him. Not because he should always put me first, because it takes two to make a relationship work. And actually, he should be going to football as well, because it's his passion and it's love. So I think there's something that you have to sort of trade off in a really positive way. And I never feel a lack of if I say I'm not going to go to football. I think, good for you, you go, you pay for the season ticket, you make it work for you. I still think there's a lot of limiting attitudes around men in football. I mean, I'm very lucky on the board. We've got Paul Barber, who is amazing, by the way, and he's at the back of the room now. And I count him as absolutely an ally and have confided in him, asked him questions, and he's given me brilliant counsel. Ben Carter, Christos, who I've spoken to from Barclays. I know we've mentioned Barclays, but mention Barclays again.
Mention them again.
And these are some people who I call friends in my world, and I think women in football is better by having these friends around us. I think we've got to change, as Reshmin says, some of the entrenched attitudes. I work on a board where I'm now delighted I have another female board member in Preeti Shetty, who is here today and is a panellist later. And I think my world is better having another woman. You should never be one and done on any board. There should never be one of anything, whether you are of disability, whether you are gay, whether you are black, whether you're Asian. Never be one of anything, because you're always the tokenistic person trying to make the difference from everybody else, and it's poor governance at the very least. At the very best, doubling up or tripling up to some degree. I'd love to see 4 women on our board at Brentford, but tripling or quadrupling up really gives you multiple perspective. And being an only woman on a board, I found it quite tough for many, many years. By the way, I still find it tough. I find it tough because there's a tone that you have to pursue when you're communicating. If I'm passionate about something, it gets called an outburst. And if somebody else is passionate about something, they're not a woman, it gets called somebody with passion. And why do I have to change my tone or dilute who I am or mitigate how I come across so it looks and sounds good to someone else? Actually, what I think is really happening is the people on the receiving end are threatened by something, not consciously, maybe subconsciously. And so what they'll do is they'll say, maybe you shouldn't have said that, or maybe that has ramifications. Well, actually, if my mouth said it, it wouldn't have ramifications. So why does it have to be that I've said it and it has that sort of effect? So on saying that, though, Brentford is an amazing club, and I have got an amazing group of board colleagues. And I think little by little, we're chipping away, Preeti and I, we are chipping away at some of that attitudes. And I think we've got a lot of great people. Our director of football and our chairman are really excellent, and other board members too. But I think there's still work to do on really pushing forward the women's agenda in a football club, not just in Brentford, across all football clubs. To put a women's programme in place has got to be the progress thing that we're targeting. Certainly this year. I'm calling it, I spoke to a colleague yesterday at Brentford, and I said this year I'm calling it the Year of the Woman. Not the Day of the Woman, International Women's Day, the Year of the Woman.
We need a full year. I mean, a day is not enough, really, is it?
Year of the Woman, and all the things that go with it.
And as you were describing, that sort of loneliness at the top and being the only woman, which I think so many of us in this room can relate to, what do you do in that situation? Because we know what it feels like. We know when you make a point and it's just pure tumbleweed, nobody responds, there's no eye contact, or you say something that you think's a really good idea and it just doesn't get acknowledged or taken up, and you sometimes feel like you are speaking a different language. You might not have it within your gift to just bring in another woman or bring in another Asian woman or someone, all these different protected characteristics. What can you do? What do you do in that situation?
I think you have to be honest and humble and transparent about how you feel about things and keep saying. And I think the important thing is women should always be finding allies. I think one of the things to do is find your allies, find your, what I call your happy place, your safe spaces where you can, I know this phrase is used so much at the moment, leaning in, when we lean in, somewhere where you can actually lean into, where you can talk about stuff. I think doing it on your own, it implodes and you start to get this imposter syndrome. So let me tell you, I've already had it sitting on this platform here. Everyone talking about Reshmin and loads of languages and Sian and what she's doing and Jo and all the people she's met. And I was thinking, and I'm just Monique Chowdhury. But actually, I'm Monique Chowdhury and I've got some really awesome skills.
You have.
And actually...
Yes, we love that. Absolutely love that.
I've run 2 successful businesses. I'm on Women of Football Board is about the best board in the world. And I'm around this incredible group of people. I'm always in awe of them, but learning all the time. So I think when you are on your own, I think it's to keep talking about how you're feeling But when I say talk about your feeling, I don't mean just dumping your feelings over people, so they're left with the emotion, but then you walk away feeling better. There's a responsibility in how you communicate, whether you're a man or a woman, to actually be inclusive around others. You know, to think about how your language is impacting people, about how you ask for things. And I think rant doesn't work. I don't think it ever works. I think sulking certainly doesn't work. I've tried that, it doesn't work. But I do think asking for what you want very clearly. Sadly, though, one of the things I think that women have to do, where men maybe don't, is they have to put together a business case all the time.
Yes, and
For
exhausting,
communicating.
by the way.
It's exhausting. I have to go, why would I need X? Oh, let me just write down, let me do a straw man, let me do all these things. I'm thinking, oh my God, can I just ask for something without having to justify? So I do think that I've spoken to my board and senior leadership in various organisations about whether they feel like that, and they don't feel like that. So I think that's the big gap. The gap is, why would a woman have to justify herself? Just a very quick story. I'm working with an organisation at the moment where I did some consultancy on reforming some of their employee resource groups, and I happened to speak to a most beautiful and articulate black woman. And she told me she'd applied in the company 7 times to get a job, and she'd been unsuccessful 7 times. And I said, what do you put that down to? She said, being a woman, but not being black. I'm around men all the time. And I said, okay, did the people ever give you feedback about why you didn't get the job? And she said, no. I said, did you ask for feedback? She said, no. So I said, so how do you know what to do next time in order to get a job that you go for? She said, well, I think I've now just thought maybe I'm not good enough. And I thought that was really so sad. And I said, okay, let's work on what you can do here. I'm very happy to say she has now got herself a job on the 8th time of asking in the organisation. And she still feels like she's having to justify herself because she's just felt pummeled by the experience. And I can imagine there are people around the room that may have had that, you know, that feeling. It's like, if you have to justify, you're wasting your energy. And you're diluting your power, and that, to me, doesn't work. So.
Thank you, Monique. Jo, I want to come back to you because, yes, you have set up this business and become so successful yourself, but it seems to be embedded in your business that you're always advocating for others. I don't just mean in your role as Women in Football Director, but beyond that, you know, the talent that you represent, you really drove that agenda to get women talking about football on TV, which, you know, was the big... we all remember when Jackie commentated on Match of the Day, and goodness me, all hell broke loose. There had to be a national debate on it. I'm surprised it wasn't raised in Parliament. But you know, you got Eniola Raluco that role as a pundit on men's football. Tell us a bit about some of those struggles, about getting fair play for women, all those conversations that you've had along the way.
I think, yeah, Kelly and Jackie spoke about getting Ennie on telly. Actually, weirdly, I started in men's football, so I didn't work in women's football. And prior to that, I don't know who I thought I was, but when I was a young person at the BBC, I watched Match of the Day. Obviously, I'm from South East London. I grew up in a very multicultural area, and I watched Match of the Day, and it was a white presenter and white pundits. So I managed to get myself a coffee with the editor of Match of the Day at the time, and I remember meeting him in the canteen in the BBC. And generally, I worked on 5 Live. I was a match reporter. I had nothing to do with Match of the Day. And I was like, can I ask you something? He was like, yeah, sure. And I said, why don't you have any black pundits on Match of the Day? And he was like, well, we've got our pundits. And, you know, we have our secure pundits. I think it was Loro and Alan Hansen at the time. This shows my age. And I said, yeah, those days. And I was like, yeah, that's really cool, but have you seen footballers? Have you seen football fans today? Like, this is not representative of my generation and football. And I started doing a bit of work we got Jason Roberts on 606 at the time. I was working with Dion Dublin on some stuff. And I was like, what about Dion? What about Jason? You know, he's played in the Premier League for X amount of years. Dion was in the 100 Club. So anyway, it actually started with me diversity as a whole. I wasn't on this women's agenda from day one. I worked in men's football and just saw a gap. So anyway, we got some diverse men on Match of the Day, hooray. So I was like, all right, what else is happening on Match of the Day? What else can I mix up? And Ennie Aluko had approached me when we had the Olympics in 2012, and there was a few players who felt they needed representation, and I'd started doing some work as an agent. And so yeah, 2012 started working with Ennie, and I was like, these women are amazing. Rachel Brown-Finnis, Claire Rafferty, Ennie Aluko. I was like, they need to have a voice on TV. Like, they need to be talking about football in the same way that we talk about football. So again, went back to my old friend. Hi, me again. Right, we've got some diversity. What about some women? And I kid you not, the word was, she has never played the men's game, so why would she be able to speak on the Premier League? And honestly, I was like, so I represent Dion Dublin at the time. Dion Dublin has 4 caps for England. Amazing, incredible. 100 goals in the Premier League. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. But he has 4 caps for England. I had Eni Aluko, who had 88 caps for England at this point and played for Chelsea. You know, she'd won the Premier League. How can you tell me she can't comment on men's football? Does that mean I can't comment on men's football because I'm a woman? I've been working for you for years writing on men's football. So anyway, this was 2012. October 2014, eventually. I still remember the day. I remember the day before Eni and I, and obviously we were trying to pretend we weren't nervous at all. We were both really nervous. And she went on Match of the Day, and I remember she did a great piece of analysis on Wayne Rooney, and, you know, there were headlines everywhere. And she just did it, and it just started this ball rolling. And I mean, now, you know, you'll watch TV, and we have women on every TV programme going, really. And that's all down to, you know, 2 years of fighting, bosses listening to us, bosses agreeing to making change, me asking the question, Eniola delivering. You know, it's not just a one thing that happens overnight. It's a whole group of people that are wanting the same thing. So yeah, I'm really proud of that, and I'm really proud. You know, my job now is representing loads of female athletes, both on and off the pitch, and you know, talking about the battle and the struggle of being a mother. I represent, you know, many athletes and coaches who are mothers, and actually I think Chloe and I take great pride sometimes. I'm doing a deal at the moment for a tournament, and one of the pundits they want is a single mother, so you kind of do the deal, and I was like, right, great, and obviously the room needs space for the child and her mum, effectively. Oh, we didn't realise that would be part of it. Well, how do you think she's going to work on a 4-week tournament with a 3-year-old son? What are we doing with the son? You know, she's a single mother. I think it's almost easier now. I don't know how you find it, but I'm working with elite women who have sort of proven themselves, so they're in demand. And I'm not saying it's easier for you now because you're in demand, but I think I'm quite happy to lose the job if they can't make it work because she's got a child.
I'm quite happy to lose any job. I don't think anything is worth it.
No,
you know?
and that's what I think.
But you have to get to that.
Yeah, confidence experience.
Yeah, confidence experience. It comes with just seeing how crap some people, because people will, pardon my language, they'll take the piss as long as they can. And they really do. So after a while you think, is it really worth it for my mental happiness? It's a tournament, but there's always something else around the corner. So you don't get, I don't know about you, but you're probably the same in terms of who you represent, that you don't get het up on anything in particular because actually it doesn't really matter in the context of life. Something else will come up. There will be something else. Yeah. So it's those little things that you're happy to let go. You've got to trust that, and you've just got to say, well, you know,
your loss.
It's your loss.
But I think 20 years
ago,
yeah. I was the epitome of the, you know, I ruined relationships. I made myself ill. I was the yes girl. I did everything because I was, yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, I'll do that. Yes, I work 24/7. I don't care what's going on at home. You deal with that. I'm really busy at work. Whereas I think now I've learned...
It's a balance, isn't it?
A balance.
You create your own balance.
Yeah.
But I think that comes with time. So I think maybe, I don't know if a lot of people in the room, if you're starting out, it is different. But those are the years that you give to the job. Those are the years where you do it. But I think you're just more aware of the boundaries now. And I meet young girls who are like, oh, you know, but my career's going really well now. I don't know if I want to have children. I'm like, don't hold your life there just because your career's going well. There are other you've just got, there is a balance. And I think that within time and by seeing people who do have worked out the balance, all of us have somehow figured it out through, you know, the hard stuff as well as the good stuff. And, you know, it is about that, isn't it, really?
I think that's really important. And the reason that we do things like this and the reason that, you know, if I'm asked to speak at something, I generally do it because it's that visibility. So I spoke about seeing Rachel Anderson 15 years ago. She was a real inspiration to me. I remember when I started at 5 Live, there were a few females in senior positions, but none of them had families. And I think it's really important now to see, you know, Jackie and Anna have been amazing sort of inspirations for me to watch at close hand. My clients, Emma Hayes, Rachel Brown-Finnis, Tracy Neville, you know, these working mothers, you know, you and I have known each other a long time, and I watch in awe at how you've all done it. But I think when I was younger, I didn't see that. And
You know, I met you when I just had my
I
first
remember.
child, and I remember telling you actually that she didn't get it. You didn't get it when I first met you. I was like, yeah, so I just had my child. And I was actually pregnant with my second child, which was soon after, like 20 months later he was born. And I remember you were just like, okay. And you didn't get it at that time. And a couple of years later, I remember when we met, I saw a softness in you that I thought she does actually get it now. She's understood. But at that time, you didn't. But it's not your fault. It's just that you weren't in that zone.
I didn't see it either.
Yeah.
I hadn't been close enough to it
Yeah.
because I was in this driven,
Yeah,
got to
exactly.
prove myself, men's environment.
Exactly. It's the man, it's the
Yeah.
testosterone environment.
And we
isn't it?
just didn't see those mother role models. I mean, you've reeled off a list of absolutely stellar names,
Yeah,
like Emma Hayes at the cup final with her son. The fact that people are even able to ask, no matter the response, yes, I need space for my childcare. You know, that is such a brilliant thing that you're asking that for your clients. Sian, of course, you've got a daughter too. You're also a mum. And just listening to Resh and Joe talk there and really sharing, I guess, that those years of experience and how important that is, it made me think of your pledge that you've given to get on side. And can you tell us a little bit about that and why you are so passionate? Because you genuinely are, Sian, like all these years, you've always been in touch with women in football and always tried to support us. Why are you so passionate about helping the next generation?
Because I really think that if you have somebody to talk to, it's about having that network, somebody to show you that you can do it, somebody to be around and listen to their views. It's really important that we have that. So for me, my pledge is to have 3, aspiring female referees to come through, because if you don't know how it is, how can you ever want to be it? You've got to try things first. You've got to, and I think that everybody looks at referees and thinks, oh, what a hard job. There's so many benefits to it. That actually...
Tell us what those benefits are, Sian.
benefits of being a referee.
It looks hard. It does look hard.
I would say I've got my closest female and male allies in football. They're my family. And, never did I think that I would have a career in football when I, coming through as a 13-year-old starting my referees course. Never did I think I would be a Premier League assistant earning full-time wage out of it, getting up every day. My career is I take my daughter to school, I go training, I can go and pick her up from school. Actually, that's a fantastic career for females. Yeah. Okay, we work Saturdays, but she can come to football. Yeah. So I think that there are me as a person, I grew from being a referee. All of my skill set now, to be able to sit here on a stage, came because I was a referee. Because it gave me confidence, it gave me the ability to stand there in front of 22 men on a Saturday afternoon and tell them what to do. Who doesn't love that? So, it gave me all of the skills that I have today inside of football and outside of football from being a referee. So I think it's a great career. We don't just get shouted at. Do get a little bit shouted at.
Next time my 10-year-old says, Dad, I really want to be a referee, and my husband says, don't do it, I'm going to tell him off. I'm going to say, Sian Massey says. It's brilliant. I'm just going to make a note that you can actually apply to benefit from Sian's pledge or any of the others that you hear about today by emailing the team at joinus@womeninfootball.co.uk. I'm really conscious that we've only got a few minutes left before we break for coffee. We have such a stellar panel. I could really talk to them all day, and I genuinely mean that. Is there anyone in the room who's desperate to ask some questions? Would you like to put your hand up? Oh, I knew there would be. Go on. Just wait for the microphone to come over to this lady in the beige top. Thank you. I love the sprinting. That's really good. That will help with the time challenge. Please just tell us your name and where you're from and then ask your question.
Hi, my name's Emma. I'm from Bloomsbury Football. My question kind of goes to everyone on stage.
You've got to pick one person. We haven't got that long.
I mean, it's kind of a general one. I'll go for Joe then. Just because as a young female in the football industry, sometimes we feel like we just have to do everything. And what you were saying about, having to say no to things, where do you draw the line? Because obviously, there's so many of us nowadays who want to make it in football, whether that's as a coach, as a manager or referee or whatever. But when do we say no? And how can we then, set boundaries for ourselves, but without taking away those opportunities or missing out on things that we might. I guess it's kind of FOMO, but where do you say no?
No, I totally get it. And I think in this one, you've got to do as I say, not do as I do, because I think I alluded to earlier, I ruined lots of personal things. You know, I don't have children. I'm not married anymore. I ruined a lot of things because I worked too hard, and I have a lot of regrets around that. But at the same time, I have an amazing business, an amazing set of friends. So I think you just have to do what serves you. And if that's working 7 days a week, that's absolutely fine. If it's working 5 days a week, 9 to 5, that's also fine, because there are jobs, like Sian says. Sian's job works for her life. My job works for my life. My life, you know, I'm 24/7, but I choose that. And when I don't choose it, I'll have a Saturday off. So I think it's that, don't be afraid to say no, because sometimes saying no is quite powerful. And, you know, I think, Reshmin, you will have seen it. It's, oh, she's not always available. Oh, she's not the yes person. Wow, we really bloody missed her today. So, you know, I'm not saying be difficult, and I'm not saying say no, 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 no. But I think have your own boundaries. Be careful of your mental health space. Be careful of your energy. You know, I think when you're working 7 days a week, you're not working properly. You are exhausted, and you will be depleted of everything. And you won't enjoy it. You know, we work in football. This is not hard, guys. Yeah, it's...
We could get real jobs, couldn't we?
Honestly, I worked in McDonald's to pay... You know, I worked in pirate radio to learn my trade. I worked in McDonald's, and I've always said to myself, if all else fails, I will go back to McDonald's. I had a great time, but it was hard. It was so hard, I can't tell you. I work in football. I go to football matches. I'm sitting here talking to you today. This is work. So, you know, we've got to enjoy it. Otherwise, what are you doing it for? So, yeah, I would just say whatever serves you. There's no rule. If you're having, you know, a great few months and you're feeling on top of the world and your personal life's a bit, you know, it's not great, go for your life. If you're, you know, having a nice time at home, or you're learning a new hobby, or you've got a new relationship, take a bit, you know, keep a bit for yourself. It's a lot of years. It's a lot of years to go. Keep your energy.
Thank you, Jo. That's such an honest and lovely answer. I think we've got time for maybe one more question. This lady just here in the maroon top. Tell us your name and where you're from.
Hi, good morning all. My name is Katja and I work for City Football Group. So my question will go probably for Reshmin, I would say. Taking into consideration how hard it is to get the balance between being a woman working in football, having a great career, and obviously your personal side as being a mum, I wonder, and also concern as being an immigrant, because I'm Portuguese, so I don't have that background support, grandparents and so on. How can organizations, or what would you like to see organizations doing and stepping up to actually provide that support for women can, you know, have some kind of a nursery on the side that would actually allow you, okay, I need to go to work, taking my kids with me, they stay, they're safe, or I need to do some interviews during a match, the kids are there, you're just going to go and pick them up. What could organizations do, or what would you like to see to have that kind of support?
God.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, because I've been in situations where I would love to have, you know, on a holiday where I'm going up somewhere to do an interview, and I'd really love to take my kids with me because it would be so much easier, plus they'd have a fun day out. And then your boss is like, oh no, but because of protocol we can't do da-da-da-da, because of forms that they need to sign. I think those kind of things are there. It's a really tough one, because it is up to individual organizations, and it's not necessarily their duty when they employ you to give you that, but I think they've got to give you the tools, and they probably need to pay you a little bit extra to make sure that you can afford the childcare, because it is different when you don't. I mean, to be, like I said, if I actually worked out how much time my support network had to give to look after my kids, I mean, they'd be raking it in, and they deserve to be for all the things that they did. It's a tough one, because, as I say, I'm not someone who would make those kind of decisions, but I think, again, it's something I was saying before, it's kind of communication, and it's when you get to that level, because most of us will do everything we can to make it work. So if you need to call up a friend, you'll say, look, is there any chance you can just pick up the kids just so I can, you know, I'm a single mum as well. So if I need to organise all of that, I will say, you know, ring up a really good friend of mine and say, do you mind just organising this for my kids or whatever? And everything's normally fine. So we'll go out of our way to make things happen. But in the cases that you don't, it's like in anything in life, there has to be an open dialogue. You've got to be honest. You've got to be really, really true and vulnerable when you need to be, because ultimately it is about protecting your energy and protecting your mental health. And I totally agree with you on those two things, because those are the two things that are the most important to me. I'm not going to give any bad energy to anything. I'm not going to waste my time thinking about, oh, they didn't do this, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to, it's not about that. And I've got to look after myself, whatever makes me happy on the inside. So you kind of have to have that really open dialogue when you go into a new company. And I think it is difficult when you're in that stage of your life, because most organizations, as you were saying, Monique, the corporate world is light years ahead of football.
They are, and actually I'm not an immigrant and I didn't have any support. My mother died when my children were very young and I didn't have anyone to lean on, nobody, not from either side of my family. I did it all myself. And I was working and ran a business and it was really hard work. But actually I did feel like some of the corporates were very supportive and they knew if I needed to leave early and do that. And by the way, parenting is a choice. Not everybody in this room will want to be a parent. And they, children will just not be the thing. My daughter has already decided, she's 23, she may not know, but she's already decided that she doesn't want to be a mother. And I respect that. That's her choice in life. But I think it is harder. The sport is having to play catch up to some degree with where corporates are. There are policies that need to be put in place about caregivers and about people that have parental responsibilities and also people that have other lifestyle choices. You might be caring for a parent as well. You might be like, my dad's got dementia, and if I was working for a corporate, nobody would necessarily give me time off, but they'd have some empathy. So I think there is an honest dialogue that you need to have, but I think football is on the cusp of making changes. So for instance, I know that Brighton Football Club, Paul, are starting to put a lot of policies in place to support women for menopause, for caregiving, for parental. They are really good. They are up there, and I know that Brentford are starting to consider some of these things as well. Not every club will do it. And if you're in the lower leagues, they don't have the resources or the finance to think about this because they're working on skeleton staff. So it's not easy. But I think what you have to do is there are choice points in life. And you just have to back your choice points and go, this is what's going to feed me. And there may be some difficulty in those choices I take, but I'm willing to take that road and take that journey. And it's your friends that are your support. I found my friends were my network of support. They're the ones that really gave me the sustenance I needed to carry on when it did feel like sometimes I couldn't. And I was so tired, so very tired.
Always tired. Not tired. God.
Thank you, panel. I'm so sorry to bring this discussion to a close. I hope you continue having this discussion. We're going to have a very brief coffee break in the yellow concourse before the next session. Next session starting now.
I think it changed.
We've changed the timing slightly. So it's going to be, Jackie knows. Lovely. So we'll be back at 12:30. Just before you go, there was a lovely nugget of advice from Vicky Kloss that she sent in this morning. This is all part of the digital brochure for the Women in Football Conference, so you can read more of them there, but I just thought this was a lovely way to end the session. She said, and I think this really sums up what so many of us on the panel have been saying about the football industry, strive to do what you love. Loving your job is a perfectly reasonable career goal. If you love what you do, you work hard at it because it doesn't feel like work. By working hard, you get respect, get noticed, and usually get rewarded. Oh, and stay humble, always. So thank you very, very much to this absolutely brilliant panel, and see you all at 12:30.